Before we get cracking with this video, I just want to say that there will be a link at the top of the description which you can click to go and get the game for yourself if you so wish to do so. Either way, please do enjoy this video. I've played a few solid hours of Kingdom Under Fire 2, not my typical genre, but they asked me to play it, so I was happy to oblige, and so I thought I'd make a video on it giving my honest opinion, based of course on what I've played, and talk to you a bit about the game itself. I would have done all this soon, the truth be told, but then my old PC Doris up and started messing about, and now she's sat with laundry piling up on top of her, so we all know how that ended, but I finally got to sink my teeth into this game. From research I did before diving in, I discovered that this real-time strategy MMO had in fact been in development for years, to put it lightly. And so I became more eager to play it, so I gave it a go on stream a trio of times, and I'd like to think that I had fun for the hours that I played. The game looked modern for an RTS MMO standard, but played vastly different to how you'd expect a modern game to play, favouring a style I'd associate more with older games, with unvoiced dialogue complete with characters helping you through direct tutorials by telling you to press this button to achieve this output, which as a kid somewhat broke immersion to me, but now I find it oddly charming. I don't know how many times I've been told to press the F key in real life to perform basic motor functions, but it's clearly not happened enough. Press F to stand up. Now press E to fuck off. Dialogue does eat up a huge chunk of the playtime, if you opt to read them, which I'd recommend because it fleshes out what's going on why and what's happening next and why. I'd say though it's a huge chunk of the game, there's plenty more to it, so hovering on this point for too long would not be fair to the rest of it. That being said, even still dialogue isn't too much at once, so there's no real issue here. I will say sometimes it feels as if the dialogue could be better organised, so you finish all the dialogue with a character at one point when handling several quests without the dialogue ending and you having to restart the interaction, but it's not that important because it doesn't take up any time at all to do. I feel it's fair to say that on the whole, NPC AI in this game is relatively simple by comparison to some games on the market. For example, you'll finish a quest talking to someone and they'll say, let's go to this place. So you do that, going on your own with that NPC staying stationary, only to appear instantly in the new location. Like I said, this game isn't MMO, so I'm not sure what to expect other than that, but it can be quite funny sometimes. Another funny thing that I've noticed is sometimes you'll find yourself doing things in quests that naturally the person asking you to do them would have no troubles doing these tasks for themselves, such as asking someone for an opinion by asking you to go ask even though the two characters in question will be stood across a bonfire from one another. Woo. I wonder what Jaeger thinks. Can you ask Jaeger what he thinks about this? He just asks what I think. I'm cool.
Hello.
I have choice. Talk to Jaeger.
Take
Where
care.
is Jaeger when he's at home? Oh my god, there he is.
Thank you for your hard work, as
You
always.
could just ask him your fucking self. Now, this game really thrives in its raids, battles, sieges, or whatever you want to call them in this genre that I've barely explored. When it comes to these battle moments, the game is focused primarily on its real-time strategy elements. I don't find these things being overly complicated, though there was always a tutorial talking me through something new entirely that I could do to the endless hordes of enemies I found myself scrapping. And of course, these events have cutscenes and things which are pretty cool. But I think the big takeaway from these is that this game chucks enemies at you by the busload. Sometimes it's so nuts that you can't see anything that's going on, but for the most part it's just absolutely mental, and I love it. If I could say one thing was my favourite thing about the experience that I've had, it's probably the endless hordes of enemies in battle that make you really feel like you're actually in the heat of battle. As I'd imagine if this was real life, these battles would be quite disorienting for anybody involved. But you get my point. From a gameplay standpoint, the combat can get a little crazy at times. Slashing through hordes of enemies, using special skills, commanding troops to help protect you, go on the offensive and use archers and the like to help you keep on top of the action really surprised me considering how much is actually going on. From a raw perspective, the NPC AI can sometimes be quite dumb. In smaller fights as you go from quest to quest, you'll find yourself stood right next to an enemy that seemingly doesn't even notice you're there, which again is something I find far too amusing to be mad at. Back to the epic sieges though, you've got your troops, which you can command throughout the battle. Your troops come in different classes too, so you have your infantry, your archers and so on. Each different class of troop regiment has their own uses. Archers are good for ranged assaults, for example, thinning ranks to make the heat of battle more bearable, or to take out other archers placed out of reach of infantrymen. And of course you can switch between playing as your character in the heat of battle and commanding the battlefield from a tactical perspective, looking down on the battle. As you do this, your character will keep up the fight, so you don't have to worry about rapidly switching to avoid dying, giving you plenty of time to apply the tactic you think is best to command your forces to engage your opponent however the game allows. Major enemies, leaders if you will, in battles and the like seem to focus primarily on attacking you, another hallmark of older games, so you'll be lost in a sea of your men, but the big enemies will still chase you to the ends of the earth, so you have to be ready to fight. And their health bar doesn't deplete quickly either. In fact, sometimes in battles you'll find bosses, if you will, with so much health that by the time you depleted it, Britain would have actually left the EU. I know, I made a politics joke, I'm sorry. And with these big bastards chasing you and only you, this can get quite challenging. When enemies die, they tend to vanish entirely relatively quickly. Decluttering the screen in battle, avoiding lag, probably is a primary reason, but the other one being this is an MMO and they need to respawn, especially in quests outside of battle, so other players can come along and kill them to complete objectives themselves. But it's just as well, because if everybody's dead foes were laying on the ground, the game would probably clutter up and lag out quite quickly. Character customization / creation is relatively tame. I find, as usually when I play games like this, I tend to find ways to absolutely ruin my character. My character, who I wanted to name Graham but couldn't because some West member already had the idea first, was promptly named Graham too, and he runs about looking like he has a botched nose job. Barring that, he looks relatively fine. He doesn't say very much, but nobody can blame this face for not drawing attention to himself. Why did God create me? You can choose from 5 different classes: Gunslinger, Spell Sword, Berserker, Ranger, and Elementalist. I opted for the Gunslinger class for reasons unbeknownst to myself, but that's fine. I didn't try the other classes for myself, but I suppose that's some incentive to give the game a go for yourselves. The level up system functions like any other. As you complete quests, you fill your XP bar and eventually advance to the next level. You pick up gear that you can equip as you go, which can make you stronger both defensively and offensively, though you have limited storage space, so be sure to unload your unwanted detritus as you go. Sometimes you'll need to unload your gear to get rewards to finish quests, but I find there will always be something utterly useless to you in your inventory that you can scrap. A few hours into the game, it surprised me by introducing the lunar wing, so I flew about in that for a bit after gathering the materials to fuel it, only for it to be destroyed soon after, and I found that very amusing. However, it did provide a taste for what appears to probably be a later game feature, as there was actually gameplay while flying the lunar wing. Now, this is not going to be a one and done gameplay feature, is it, realistically? I mean, I might be wrong, I'm not in the later game, but I reckon in some capacity something like this would show up in the later game, so I'm sure I'll find out when I play more of it. On the microtransaction front, I'm not too well informed because I don't tend to pay much attention to what I'm not interested in, but at no point in my experience was a paywall shoved in my face, and from what I've researched, been told and experienced, microtransactions appear to be purely cosmetic in this game, which is fantastic because it means there's no pay-to-win features that would potentially compromise the game's integrity as an MMO. On that front, it's a double thumbs up from me, and I don't know what else I can say. Graphically speaking, the footage speaks for itself. The game looks how it needs to. It's not aesthetically unpleasant by any means, and considering the clutter in battle, I'd imagine there was only so much that they can do, but it holds up. It's not intended to be a graphical masterpiece like Red Dead Redemption 2, God of War, or anything like that, and that works in favour of the performance considering the style of game that it is. Either way, all things considered, it's actually rather nice looking. Not an ugly game by any stretch, it just doesn't try to be a graphical masterpiece, and I can 100% respect that. Performance wise, I think I had a noticeable frame drop once in my entire experience thus far. My PC is relatively beefy, so no doubt it would hold up, but I only noticed that frame drop during the one battle where it got stupidly insane with the amounts of AIs on the screen, and I don't think any PC is going to go through that without at least seeing some form of drop. Glancing at the Steam page, the system requirements on PC for this game aren't anywhere near as steep as my machine, so please don't worry about that one. On the glitch front, I really didn't notice very many. Obviously, every game's going to have a few here and there, but I can't think of anything particularly game-breaking, or memorable at all for that matter. It did CTD once, and some cuts in cutscenes look a bit janky, but beyond that, everything seems relatively fine. Anyway, I'm quite sure that I'm not scratching the surface with what this game has to offer. Other features that this game has includes co-op dungeon activities, which I would give a go if I knew where to find them and had a friend that would want to play it with me. You can also ride a horse in this game. It's a horse that magically appears under you out of nowhere, but it's still a horse. And as I said, I'm certain there is much more to it. Ultimately, Kingdom Under Fire 2 is a fun time. I'm not that deep into MMOs or real-time strategy games, generally speaking, but I sure enough had a lot of enjoyment in this game, as it reminded me of the older games that I enjoyed playing as a kid to a degree. That's not to say that this game is dated or old, it just uses a few things that I haven't seen utilised in games in a while, such as dialogue integrated tutorials. And my favourite thing that this game has to offer has to be the mental battle. I mean, what else would it be? I'm sure I'll keep playing this game from time to time to get deeper into it to see what happens and see what's next, because I've certainly been having some fun with it. So yes, if you're into MMOs or primarily real-time strategy games, then Kingdom Under Fire 2 is probably a game for you. And if that does so happen to be the case, then follow that link in the description and go and check it out for yourself. There's so much to do in this game that this video doesn't do it enough justice, so please, if you feel even remotely interested in it, check it out, do some extra research if that's what it takes, and make up your own decision. Regardless, I've given you my thoughts on the game now, so take it as you will. Anyway, thank you all for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to go ahead, leave a like, subscribe, share the channel with your friends and all that wonderful stuff. That'll be really appreciated. And of course, I will see you all very soon with another video at some point.